Good evening, everybody. I'm going to sneak in here about 5 minutes early just to say all my hellos and all. Hope you're having a good evening. Sorry about last week. We didn't have a class last week. I had to reschedule. Last Tuesday was one of those crazy days where everything just piled up during the day, and it didn't leave me enough time to create anything for the class or come up with an idea. Even having enough time to even just do a simple Q&A, it just wasn't happening. So we had to push everything off to tonight. So thanks for coming back and joining me. I appreciate you all as always. Now, tonight, I want to go over text on text. Now, you guys and girls know, for those of you that have been around Vectric a while now, know what text on text are, where it's called stack text. And we've done projects with text on text in the past. But this last week, I've had a few people message me and ask me about it and how to proceed, or do you have a video on it that I can watch? And I went back into my videos, my past lives and everything, and I've had some text on text elements spread out, in the classes and stuff throughout the classes and all, but not really one that discussed it and everything. And so I want this class to be a text on text class, and we're going to talk about 3 different approaches to text on text. Now we're going to look at the VCarve method of text on text versus a straight pocket. I, in my personal opinion, think a VCarve text on text has a much more elegant look, much more detail, much cleaner looking than the straight pocket text on text. So we're going to focus on the VCarving of a text on text or stack text object. And we're going to do some, different levels of signs and things. But the 3 approaches that we're going to take are, option number 1, which would be in, VCarve. That would include desktop or Aspire, right? Or desktop or Pro, right? Desktop or Pro and Aspire. Let me learn how to spell. And this would include creating free layers. Okay. We would have an original layer, a top text layer, and a bottom text layer. This method includes, because of the VBit, based on the VBit, right? Based on the VBit, there is going to be an offset of the back text, right? The larger text is in the background. So I'm just going to call it I'll call it the back text versus the bottom text, because the bottom text layer kind of includes a welded layer, so of the back text. And so this would be option number 1. And there is another approach to it, which I'm going to call option 2. And I actually, watching Mark Ottman online, Mark Ottman made a text on text video, and he took a different approach to this. And he took a different approach to this, and instead of offsetting the back text, he offset the top text and the border. So option 2 again would be all 3, the VCarve, desktop, Pro, and Aspire. This creates 4 layers. Okay. So there would be creating 4 layers, and those layers would lay out as your original layer. That's your original design, your top text, your bottom text, and then a layer called welded text. Welded text. Okay. So it actually separates the welded element of this. The the sorry to laugh in the middle there, but Chris said he heard this is the home of short Vectric tutorials. There's nothing short about these classes, but I'm going to try to make it short and to the point because text on text is pretty straightforward. This separates the welded text into its own layer where everything is kind of welded together, and it separates it from the bottom and the top. But in this approach that Mark Ottman did, the top text elements, the top text is offset, and it's offset outward in an outward direction. And this was this one here is offsetting the back text inward. Let me just put that in there up here. But offsetting the top text outward based on the bit, right? So let's put in there, let's kind of keep things consistent. So again, based on the V-bit. Let me learn how to spell. The top text is offset outward, and the boundary is offset inward. Okay, and so that would be option number 2. Both of them get you to the same place, but one may be better than the other for you, or you might like that approach better than the other. We're going to do both so you can see the approach on both of them. Sometimes with offsetting the back text inward, you know, and reducing it down based on the V-bit, the offset of the V-bit and everything, sometimes certain fonts can be used, certain fonts cannot be used, because if that text is offset inward and any part of that text disappears, then you can't use that font. You got to find a more bold, standout font. What I've found in my little messing around today is that when I did option number 2, offsetting the top text outward, if I lost any part of my inner elements, it didn't really affect the design. So I didn't have to change the font. And I'm gonna show you that. You'll see that when we actually do the design. Now, the third option, option 3, is only for Aspire. So it's an Aspire project, and it's basically modeling the stacked text design. So basically creating shapes, writing out your text, and then extruding that text to create the different levels. Okay, so these are the 3 approaches that we are going to look at. We're going to basically provide all the steps for each of them. We're going to try to get through it in a short order tonight, but I'll try to be, you know, precise and to the point so that you can follow along easily, and it won't get too long-winded and you guys won't fall asleep on me. Let's go ahead and let's start off with, I'm going to jump into VCarve Pro, and we're going to start off with options 1 and 2. We'll start off, of course, in order. We'll go with option number 1. Again, option number 1, we're going to be creating 3 layers, our original layer, top text layer, and our bottom layer. And then based on the V-bit, we're going to offset the back text inward. So let's see how that would go. All right, so in my design software, in my Vectric, I have set up a job that is, let's get full screen here for you guys and girls. I've set up a job that is 26 inches in length. So I'm going to do a sign that's 26 inches in length. It's 9.5 inches wide, so basically a 1x10. And it's going to be 3/4 inches thick. All right. And I think a 1x10 is actually 9 1/4, not 9.5. So we'll fix that. Somebody correct me in the chat. I think when you get up to like 1x4, it goes to quarters. Like a 1x5, a 1x6 is 5.5 inches, and a 1x7 is 7.25 inches, and it goes to quarters after that. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong on that, but anyway, we'll go 9.25. Basically, a 1x10 board. Now I'm going to be working off of. I usually work off my wasteboard, right? The machine bed. Usually zero out on the machine bed for me because my wasteboard is also, and I've said it numerous times and on many of the past classes, that my wasteboard is also a jig for clamping and stuff. But you can work off the top of the material or the bottom material, whichever you choose. And so for this class, I'm going to set it up as a, thank you, Alan, I appreciate that. I'm going to set it up as the material surface for our Z0 position. But I am going to be working from the bottom left corner because that's where my fence is and everything, and we'll go from there. So this is my job setup, 26 by 9.25 by 3/4. And so we're going to go ahead and click OK. And right off the bat, we're going to start off by organizing and creating our layers. So we can access our layers from here at the top of the view bar, or from down here off the left, the layers tab. Either way, we can access and create our layers, whichever you prefer. I'm going to just drop down from here, so it's right in the middle of the screen. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and rename layer 1 to my original. I'll just call it my original design layer. And my second layer is going to be my top text layer. And then my third layer is going to be my bottom text layer. Okay. All right. So with those three, I'm going to make sure that the original design layer is bold, and I'm going to go ahead and turn off the other two, the visibility of the other two layers. We don't need them on right now, but I want to make sure that this layer is active. Okay. So it's active. We should be able to see it up here, and it should be bold in here. And the first thing I'm going to do is in my drawing tools, I'm going to go ahead and create my boundary, my border. Generally, what I do is I take my rectangle tool and I snap from diagonal corner to diagonal corner to lay out the whole board. And then I come in and offset that rectangle that was just created inward based on how thick I want or how big I want my border to be. And in this case, I want a 1-inch border, and I'm going to be offsetting inward. And I want to create sharp corners, and I do want to delete the original. I don't need that original outer border created. It'll just get in the way and get confusing. So when I offset this, I want to make sure that that outer one that I drew, the original, was deleted. So this will be my general boundary here. The thing I want to go ahead and create first is I'll go ahead and do the back text layout. And you might have saw in the thumbnail that I did kind of a spindle TV sign, like my logo, right? And this could be really anything. I mean, you could do people's names, you can do whatever it is that you want to do, but I'm just going to lay out this, and I'm going to go with a 2-inch tall text. Let's kind of get it up here on the board. And I'm just going to go spindle TV. I want this text to be bold, and I'm going to use not the Cooper plate. Let's go. Bear with me a second. And get down here to the MNO. All right, I'm going to go with the Oswald. I'm going to go with Oswald Heavy. Yeah, that'll be fine. And let's go ahead and I'm going to hit F9 to get that centered on the board. I think I'm going to change the font, but let's get it sized up. So I'm going to hold down my shift key. I'm in transform mode. When you double click on an object, it's in transform mode. I don't like the way that V looks, so I'm going to change the font. I'm going to go ahead and shift this up to a bit of a larger size, and I am actually going to move it up because I'm going to have some lower element text here, and we're going to be talking about that, how to create a different level of like text below, like let's say an established 1929, that type of thing, which we're not going to do, but you know, without it getting carved away and stuff. I am going to go in and change the font. This font's a little bit too choppy for me, and so I'm going to go back up to my come back down to my Open Sans extra bold there. And let's get it sized back down appropriately. Okay. So now I'm going to create the top text. So I've got the back text. I've got it pretty well kind of laid out how I want. So I'm going to create another text object. Now, typically, a lot of times with the upper text or the taller text and all, typically they go with something like, you know, scripty or kind of, you know, that's not so blocky. They generally go with a something that's got a little bit of character to it, right? So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to choose my Black River Bold. I think that's the one I'm going to use. Let's see. We'll find out here in a second. Yeah, that's the one. And no, Black River Bold is not the one I want to use, but let me go ahead and get that's the one I want to use. I don't know what the hell I'm thinking. All right, and I want to go with, let's size this text up. Let's get it here. And I'm going to make this slightly a bit taller. Not move there, dude. I want you taller. And I'm going to stretch it out some. So I'm going to hold down my shift key and kind of stretch it out. And then I'm going to make sure I'm going to close this tool and I'm going to go into my alignment tool and make sure it's aligned to my material left and right. Okay. Spindle TV should be aligned, you know, left and right. So I want this aligned. And so we've got this, and I'm going to bring in this a bit, and I'm going to realign it now that I've moved it. There we go. All right. And so you know, some people put the text right, you know, over the, you know, the back text. They, you know, have it like where it covers the back text and everything, which is cool, right? You know, it can come out, you know, looking pretty good. I could do my name really big, the top text really big, and I could do Spindle TV small in the background, right? Spindle TV doesn't have to be the big text. I could do my name, you know, since I'm the star. No, just kidding. And then I could do Spindle TV coming through that, but Spindle TV being the back text. However, do it. But what I like where it has that kind of element where it's down low, so I can read that back name. It's still stacked. It's still stacked on top, but it's also off of it as well. So I'm going to go right about here for that. So we should still be able to, you know, make out Spindle TV in the background with my long Irish name and everything. And then I want to put my little tagline down here at the bottom. So I'm going to come in and I'm going to make this text about 3/4 of an inch tall. And your source for CAD CAM learn how to cam training videos. All right, now let's zoom into that because I want to change the font. That's not the font that I want to use. I'm going to go with just a very basic straight up font. I'm going to go with the, we'll go with the Open Sans. I got a capital O there that needs to go away. Your source for CAD CAM training videos. And let's go ahead and get that centered in our left and right. Okay, good. And I'm going to drop that down just a smudge. A smudge, is that a word? A smudge? All right, so let's close our alignment tool. And the fonts in this large view that I have look so wrinkly, but it's this resolution that I have for you guys so y'all can see. But all right, so this is it as far as the main design, right? Now what I'm going to have is this is going to be my stack text, and then on the lower level, the same height as the back text, I'm going to have this tagline here, right? So this could be that established or married on or for love and memory always or whatever, you know, it is going to be there. And you can have it the same height as your top text, like, right? So it's the same level. I like it when it's kind of where there's some levels to the sign. So I like it when it's the same height as the bottom text. So that way that top text stands proud of everything. You know, we'll take a look at that. Now, what I need to do is I'm going to take a rectangle, and this lower text, I'm going to create a rectangle boundary around it. And this boundary is going to protect it from getting that wood where this catchphrase is going to be, getting it, you know, it's going to protect it from being carved away when I do my pocket and everything. So let me just size this up, and I just want to make it, I don't want to make it very much bigger than the actual catchphrase. So if this was a wedding date or something, it would be the same thing. Because I'm not running it from the top of the material down, I'm actually going to be milling off the top level as a whole pocket, and this is going to be the height of the bottom level text. Then I want to protect this from getting milled away. So I got to put a boundary around to protect it. Now I'm going to take that boundary that I've created, and I'm going to offset it outward. I'm going to offset it outward by about 1/8 of an inch. And I'm not going to delete the original. I want both of them. Okay, I want both of those there. All right, and you'll see why this is important. Now, if you're just doing a simple text-on-text sign with somebody's last name and the husband and wife's first name, then everything that I just did here is irrelevant, right? I've got a catchphrase or a wedding date or, you know, some kind of cute little romantic saying if it was a, you know, a love me sign type of thing. I've got that down there. And if I did have something down there, if it was a 3D model of some hearts or some wedding rings or anything like that, I would want to protect that material from getting milled away so that 3D model would have wood to get milled, right? I don't want to get it milled away when it mills all of this stuff out. So I've got to protect it. So whatever it is, I don't care if it's simple 2D text or an object, or if it's a 3D object, you put your boundaries around it. And I'm using 2 boundaries. This boundary in here will give this that raised effect text look. And then there will be a pocket cut in a sense that will clear away the rest of the stuff. Okie dokie, okie dokie. You'll see here in a moment. All right, so we are at the point now we got to start separating things into our layers. This is our original design and it's done. So on the original design, I want to take my top text and a boundary, that inner boundary, and I want to right click and copy that to the top text layer. Okay. And we're in option number 1. So we're going to do it option number 1. You're going to see option number 2's got a couple of variances and differences when we do that. For the bottom text, I'm going to select that and a boundary, and I'm going to copy that to the bottom text layer. Okay. Now, this object here, this can also go on the bottom text layer. So I'll go ahead and just copy that to the bottom text layer as well. Now, if some people might want to say, hey, I'll just create another layer called the lower third, right? You've ever heard of the term in video making, the lower third? That's those banners and things that pop up at the bottom of the screen. And that's kind of, for this sign, that's the lower third of this sign. And so you could create another layer just for that. But I want to talk about 3 layers: original, top text, and bottom text. Okay. All right. So if we come in here now, we can turn off our original design, and we're going to start off with the top text, and we're going to make that layer active. We're going to click on it and make it bold. And sometimes if you're using script text, you know, they have overlapping lines. This is where you do your cleanup work. This is where you're going to get rid of those overlap lines and things. And in option number 2, I'll do a design where there's some script text so you can see that cleanup process. And so the top text for me, there is no loops, there's no overlaps, or nothing that needs to be corrected. So it is done. Okay, it's done. So now I can focus on the bottom text layer here. And now in option number 1, we have to offset the bottom text inward based on the V-bit that we're going to be using and how deep we're going to be cutting our letters, how tall we want the top text and the bottom text to be. So I'm going to draw on this layer here. I'm going to draw a V-bit, and I'm going to be using a 60-degree V-bit to cut my design with. And I'm going to draw a line coming across that point of that bit, and that's going to represent the bit sitting on the top of the board, right? And I can even extend that line out so it even looks like the bit sitting on the top of my board. This line represents the top of my board, and the bit's zeroed out on the top, right? Well, let's not say it that way, but the bit is at the top. Now, if I was cutting, let's say I want my top text and my bottom text to be 1.25 inches for the top text and 1.25 inches for the bottom text, then I'm going to move this line upward. Not 1.25 inches, sorry. 0.125, 1/8 of an inch, not 1.25, 0.125, right? So I would move this upward. So I'm going to go ahead and move that line relative to its current position. I'm going to move it in the Y position upward. So it's a positive number. And I'm going to go 0.125 and click apply. Okay. Now, what I need to determine my offset is I need to measure horizontally from the tip of the bit to where the bit intersects at that 1/8 of an inch, where it intersects the top surface of my board. I need to, let me change this real quick. Okay. I need to measure that offset distance. Okay. And let me select this here. And let's change that to 4 decimal points. We don't need to go 5. but I'm going to measure that offset distance, and this is my magic number, right? If I was going 1/8 of an inch, or not 1/8 of an inch, but let's say I was doing a cut depth of 0.1 instead of 0.125, I would take that line, and if I snap it back here and I moved it again, relative to its Y position, 0.1, my offset distance would be 0.056, right? So let's measure that. I don't know why I have that tool open. This tool right here, the measure tool, measure horizontally from here to here, my offset distance, and let's click there, and 0.57. So I was close, 0.57. And let's close that tool. All right. So whatever that height is, however deep you're going, that's going to be your magic number. Now for me, I want my text to be 1/8 of an inch. And this is my magic number. This is my offset from, if that bit was cutting in 1/8 of an inch from the tip of the bit to where the edge of the bit intersects the top of my board, that offset distance is my magic number. So what I need to do is, on the spindle TV here, I need to offset that inward by that number, 0.0722. I do not want to create sharp corners. When you offset your text, you don't want sharp corners. I want to delete the original, and then I want to select the new. Okay, so we're going to offset that. And it looks weird, right? It looks like the letters are all skinny and things like that, but they actually, when they carve, they will carve in full form like this. But we have to offset it in because of the way that bit's going to be cutting. We want a nice V-shaped transition on our letters and everything. Imagine, if you will, if I draw a line across the top of this bit here. Imagine if this was the top of my letter and this was the outside edge, right? I want a nice transition from the top of my board all the way down to the final cut, which is going to be, that 1/4 of an inch. I want a nice, smooth transition. I don't want a stair step or anything. And if I did not offset my back text inward, then I would get that stair step effect and it wouldn't look as clean, right? So option number 1, we've created our 3 layers, and based on the bit, we offset the back text inward. Okay, so everything is done as far as that's concerned. And now what I need to do is, on my back text, I need to select it all, and then I need to group it together so the software treats that those individual vectors as one object. All right, so that's done. Now I can come back into my top text layer here. I'm going to turn off the bottom text for a minute and come back in here. And I want to go ahead and take my bottom text, and I want to make a copy of that, or my top text, sorry. I want to make a copy of that to the bottom text layer. Then I can shut that off and come back in here. Because now, once my offset is complete, I can weld this together. But this text is still a font. I cannot weld a font. So I have to convert it to curves. Okay. And then group it back together. So the software treats all those individual vectors as one. So now I have 2 grouped objects. I have the Laney Shaughnessy and then the spindle TV. Okay. And now those 2 grouped objects can be welded together with the weld tool to create that back boundary. All right. Looks weird and all that stuff, but it'll be just fine. No worries. All right. So now we can come back in and we can turn on our top text layer. and we are ready to go over and start tool pathing option number 1. Okay, so we'll come in here and let's first save this work. We're going to go save as, save early and save often, right? So we're going to go save as, and we're going to go into our class files. I'm going to create a new folder. Maybe. Did it just freeze up on me for some odd, stupid reason? There it is, way over here. All right. What? All right, let's rename that. And I'm just going to call this 3 times TOT, text on text. Don't worry, I know what it's called, so name it whatever you need to name it. And this is, I'll just do the same thing here. But I will actually 3 by text on text. All right, cool. And I'm going to go ahead and call this option 1 so I can save these separately. All right, cool. All right, we're ready to toolpath. Now with option number 1, when we create the toolpath for both the top text and the bottom text, both toolpaths will have a start depth of 0. Okay, both will have a start depth of 0. All right. And so I'm going to come in here and I'll turn the bottom layer off for a moment and just focus on the top layer. On that top text layer, I need my boundary and my text. We're going to start at 0. We're going to have a flat depth of 1/8 of an inch. I'm going to select from my tool database my 60-degree V-bit. And everything looks good there. And then I'm going to select a flat area clearance tool. Now, I like using, I mean, depending on how big this sign is going to be and how much time you want to put into it, I like using a smaller diameter bit, like 1/8 of an inch bit, so it can kind of get closer into those letters and everything. Because wherever the end mill for the clearance toolpath, wherever it can't fit, the V-bit has to take over and do that V carving, that flattening basically with that point of the bit. And so it kind of balances out a little bit on runtime, whether my V-bit's doing that flat work or my end mill is doing it, and everything. So, if you want, you can do multiple bits. That's the new thing about 10.5. I could have a 1/4 inch end mill do a majority of the part, followed by 1/8 of an inch end mill to finish it off, right? Or you can just use 1 bit, however you want. If we would want to do 2 clearance tools, one with a bigger tool, then come back with the smaller tool to do the touch up, then we would just select that second tool. And it'll put that larger tool first in the list and then the smaller tool second in the list when it calculates the tool pass. So that way you run them in order. Now, I like rastering. Some people you'll see in a lot of Vectric tutorials and all, they just do offset. I like rastering. I prefer to cut with the direction of the grain so that the, I don't have a lot of mill marks or swirl marks or, things to clean up or in that clearance area and everything. I don't want to have to do a whole lot of sanding and stuff. So I'm going to raster cut this and raster with a 0 angle, along the x-axis. And I'm going to calculate the tool path, right? So we're going to call this our top text. And I'm going to click calculate. Now that's going to create 3 toolpaths for me because I'm using 3 bits. Let's close this for just a minute. My top text clearing 1, that's the 1/4 inch end mill. The top text clearing 2 is the 1/8 inch end mill, followed by the top text, which doesn't have the word clear. That is the 60-degree V-bit. So I'm going to go ahead and rename this while I'm here. And I'm going to just top text 0.25, and I'll use EM as end mill. And I'm going to rename this one as 0.125 EM, end mill. And this one here, I'm going to rename. And this is my 60 PEG V-bit. Okay. So that's my top text tools. So if we were to take a look at this, let's go ahead and get a decent color wood here. We'll go with just maple for right now. And if we preview the visible toolpaths, this will mill out that. And here, let's stop that for time's sake. I'll show you guys a finished rendering, but for time's sake, I'm gonna turn this quality the preview quality down really low, and let's preview that toolpath just so it's much faster. And so our 1/4 inch end mill is going to come through and do the big work, followed by the 1/8 inch end mill that's going to get a little closer, and then our V-bit's going to come and do the final work, right? To give us that nice clean look. Right, so we have 3 bits doing. All right, now let's go ahead and turn off the top text layer and come into the bottom text layer here, make it active. And on the bottom text layer, I want to choose my boundary, all of this text here. Oops, all of it, Laney, let's do that again. All of this here, that welded text, and my inside boundary right here. Okay. And of course, my inside boundary is not protecting my G. So let me fix that real quick. Got to make sure those things are protected. Let's got to zoom in. I just want to get right below the G there. There we go. And on this one, let's pull that one down just a little bit. I don't want to get too close to my border. Let me zoom in here. Okay. And awesome blossom. All right. So once again, I need my outer boundary. I need my welded text selected and the inside boundary selected. Okay. And we're going to go ahead and create that VCarve toolpath. Now, again, on this one here, this method, we will be starting at 0. And we will be cutting down to the 1/4 of an inch, that 1/8 of an inch plus that 1/8 of an inch. Okay. So that's a total of a 1/4 of an inch. Nothing changes with my tools. And as far as the tools and everything go, and let's see here, we're going to use a flat area clearance tool. Yeah, that all looks good. We're going to be doing a raster cut. And this is going to be my bottom text. And we'll go ahead and calculate that. All right, so if we were to preview that visible toolpath for these items, if we close this, you'll see we have again 3 toolpaths here. Let's go ahead and take. We'll take some time tonight and rename these things properly. So this is going to be my 0.25 end mill. Oops. This one is going to be my 0.125 end mill. And last but not least, this one's going to be my 60 BEG bit. All right. And so with those, we'll go ahead and come back into our preview, and we'll preview those visible toolpaths. Okay. And let's take a minute and answer a question here. Chuck asks, is there a right order of the toolpaths? Yes, there is. So one thing that you'll notice, Chuck, is that the Vectric software placed the toolpaths in order, in the order they should cut. The larger bit first, the larger pocket cut first, followed by the smaller cleanup bit, followed by the last bit that does the detail work. Okay. And so it lays them out. It automatically does it in order. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to add our last toolpath in here, which is that lower level text. And then we'll organize these toolpaths so that we can gang up the 1/4 inch end mills. They can cut as one file. The 1/8 inch end mills, they can cut as one file, and then the 60-degree V bits can cut as one file. So I'm only running 3 files here, right? And everything. So let's go back to our 2D view now, and let's go back into our VCarve toolpath. And this time in the VCarve toolpath, we're going to select this outside boundary and this inner text here. And this inner text and all, we've already cut down 1/8 of an inch. So we're going to start at 1/8 of an inch. We're going to flatten out at 1/8 of an inch. 1/8 start plus 1/8 equals a total of 1/4 of an inch. That's how deep our pocket is. So there's no sense in starting from 0 on this lower level because it's down low. So we've already milled away all that top surface and all. So let's go ahead and start at that 1/8 of an inch where this blank here, this blank area starts. And you can look down at the bottom of the screen if I hover my mouse over it, that 0.125. So that's where we got to start down at. And then we're going to cut down another 1/8 of an inch. Okay. Now, in the case of this toolpath, I do not need the 1/4 inch end mill. So I'm going to go ahead and remove that. I will use the 1/8 inch end mill. I will raster cut this. And this is going to be my, I'm going to call it my lower third text. And calculate that. And so we'll go through and preview that visible toolpath. Okay. Now, notice here that this ring around here where that offset was, where that pocket cleared out and everything, that ring remained, right? And it didn't clean away. And so that needed to be gone. And what that means is, and let me make sure that, let's go into this bottom text here. Yeah. What that means is the clearance here where that pocket, that first pocket cleared out, it didn't, it left a little bit, right? It left a little bit of meat around here that didn't get cleared away. And so I need to, you know, clean that out. And what I need to do is make my offset just a little bit bigger for this toolpath, this offset here. I need to make it a little bit bigger. I need to, let me look at the bottom here. The bottom's clean. It's just the sides and the top. So I need to come back in here and I got to watch my L over there. So I need to pull this up a little bit more. Oops. We'll go right about there. And then I'm going to pull this to the side a little bit more. Go right there. Yeah, that's good. We'll pull this to the side a little bit more. And this lower third, I'm going to recalculate that toolpath. I'm just simply going to recalculate it. Okay. And we're going to preview that visible toolpath. And there we go. We'll clean that up. Okay. So my lower third is the same height as my back text, and my top text is standing proud. Okay. And the resolution is crappy right now. I got it turned down real low. That's why it looks a little pixelated. But so that is the toolpath and the way to create your text on text for option number 1. Creating the 3 layers, original, top, and bottom. Offsetting the back text inward based on the bit and how tall we want our letters to be, and then creating the toolpath. Now we're going to save our changes to this. Okay. And I'm going to go ahead and we're going to start from scratch. We'll close that down and come back into the VCarve 10.5. Let's turn off those icons to make it look a little cleaner. We're going to create a new file. I'm going to go with the same size board here and same parameters, touching off on the top of the material and working from the bottom left corner. And in this one, we're going to create 4 layers. So our original layer, right, our original design. I have another layer called our top text layer. And it's up to you to choose which one you like best or which one you think is easy, or kind of switch between both if you want to. And then our third layer is our bottom text layer. And then our 4th layer is called our welded text layer. Okay. All right, so we're going to start off with the original design, make sure that layer is active, and we're going to go ahead and turn off the visibility on the others. We don't need them right now. And we're going to start off with our boundary. Everything starts the same. We're going to start off with our boundary. Okay. I like creating a rectangle around the entire border and then offsetting inward. And I'm going to offset, I want a 1-inch boundary around here. So I want to delete the original. I want sharp corners, and I want to select the new. All right, now we're going to work with our text. And so I'm not going to do the same spindle TV sign. I'm going to do a different one. So that way there's some variety. And you guys are like, okay, I've seen this. I'm going to sleep. All right, so for this back text, I'll start off with a 2-inch tall text. And I'll go with my Alta Sans. We're going to do some script text on the top text and everything, but let's go ahead and what do we want to do? Let's see here. Wow, oh my goodness, I can't even think anymore. What do we want to do? Let's go with, we'll go with Henderson's. All right, Harry and the Hendersons. All right, let's see here. Henderson. I think that's a Henderson. Henderson. All right, let's go ahead and get that on the board. Go with Henderson. And we'll go ahead and I'm going to size that up. I'm going to stretch it out a little bit. I want this one nice and big. And then I'm going to go in and make sure that I'm centered on my material. I'm going to go ahead and center this one. I'm not going to have a, now let's not do a lower third this time. We'll do a lower third on the third option, but we'll just go with this. And let's go with our choice for our top text now. Now for the top text, I'll do a little bit of script. So we have to do some welding of our top text. We'll do something a little scripty-ish and fancy. Let's see here. Let me see here. Not for Henderson. I don't want it for that. But I was just looking to see what the font looks like. We'll choose here in a second. Let's get the names on here. So let's see here. Did I spell Harriet right? Harriet and Robert. Right? We'll go with that. Harry and the Hendersons. Harriet and the Hendersons. That'll work. For this, I'll go with a 1 inch tall, 1.5 inch tall text for right now. I'll get it sized where I want it. And I'm going to drag this on the board. I'll go ahead and hit the F9 key on my keyboard just to get it centered. And like I said, some people like that center text and everything. I'm going to lower mine down a bit. But first, let me get it sized up. Then I'll change the font. Let's go a little bit taller. And let's find a nice, pretty script font here. Whoa, slow down there, Hoss. That'll work. Yep, that'll work. All right. So I'm going to go with kind of a brush script. And I'm going to go ahead and let's resize it. I want to stretch this out. And I want to go a little bit taller. And for some reason, guys, I like where the text is a little bit on, a little bit off. You can have it however you want. I like to be able to, see some of the, the larger. Now, let's reverse this for a minute. You could go on with your top text. You could go, with the top text being the, let's go right about there. Let's stretch this out. Being the taller text, and, you could have your back text being the smaller, right? However you want it. Sometimes that looks cool. Sometimes it doesn't. This name is a little bit too busy for it to look really cool. So we're not going to do that. All right. So I'm going to go with just my block text here. All right. So design's done. We're not going to do a lower third on this. So this is the design here. We'll do a lower third on, like I said, option 3. And I'm happy with that. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to take our top text and our border, and we're going to copy that to our top text layer. We're going to select just the back text, no border this time. Remember in option 1, we chose the back text and the border. but just the back text or the bottom text, and we're going to copy that to the bottom text layer. Okay. And we're going to come in here and turn off the original design. We'll start with the top text layer and make it active, turn it on. All right, so the first thing that we've got to do here, is we've got to weld or blend this text together. Now, there's a couple of ways to do that, to clean this up, right? I could convert it to curves. If I have an older version of the software, if I'm not rocking 10.5, you know, where I can just weld the text, I could convert it to curves. I could come in here and grab my scissor tools and start trimming away to get rid of those overlaps and things, right? On those letters, I could absolutely do that. Not a problem. But in the case of with this 10.5, the one thing that we can do now is when you have text, you can just select to weld that text, and the software will ask you, would you like to replace or keep the original objects? Would you like to replace or keep the original objects? Now, if you click replace, it's just going to replace it with that welded text. Okay. If you chose to keep it, then it's going to create the welded text on top of the original, and it does select the welded text. So right here and now, I can select this text as well as this border, and I can go ahead and not the border, sorry. This text here, I can go ahead and move that to the welded text layer. So I still have my kind of original text intact here, but on my welded text layer, I've got what I need, you know, already done. Your choice, however you want to do it. We just got to weld it up and get rid of the overlaps. That's the main goal. So I've decided to keep the original text and send the welded text, move it over to the welded text, move it over to the welded text layer. Now, the reason why I didn't select the border to send over there is I wanted to not move this one. I wanted to copy this to that welded text layer. All right. And I am done with the top text. So we should have a nice welded text of our top text and a border on that welded text layer so far. Okay. Now, in that welded text layer with it active, make sure it's active. I want to select all of my text here, and I want to offset this. This is my top text, right? Well, we're doing it backwards now. I want to offset this outward. Okay, so if you remember, option number 2, we create our 4 layers, and we, based on the VBit, the top text offset gets offset outward, and the boundary is going to get offset inward. Okay, so my top text here, based on my VBit. Now I'm going to go a little smaller with my depth of cut this time. I'm going to go with that 0.1 depth of cut. I kind of like the way that looks too. I like between 0.1 and 1/8 of an inch. You know, there's not much of a difference. It's only like 20 thousandths of an inch difference, but I just, you know, that's my range. So on this one, let's once again, just so you guys and girls are aware, let's draw our VBit. If it was a 60-degree VBit, we would draw it 60 and 60, spacebar to finish. Draw our line here. If it was a 90-degree VBit, draw out that 90-degree VBit. So the included angle, these 2 lines here, are at a 60-degree angle. Okay. And so we're going to move this relative to its position. We're going to move it on the Y upward 0.1 this time. And if we measure that offset distance, horizontally. Okay. 058 is our magic number. And I went with 3 decimal points. Don't go any less than 3 decimal points. You know, 3 or 4 is fine, however you want, but I'm going 3 decimal points on that. So 058 is going to be my magic number for my offset. And so Harriet and Robert here need to get offset outward by 0.058. That magic number right there. Okay. We do not want to create sharp corners. We're going to delete the original and select the new. Okay, so that'll offset that outward. And then while it's still selected, we're going to turn right around and weld that together as one object. Okay. Now we're going to select the boundary here, this border here, and we're going to offset the border inward by the same amount. So this is Mark Ottman's method. You can find him if you do text-on-text Vectric. If you do a search for that on YouTube, you will see Lucy Jones sign. That's the thumbnail. It says Lucy Jones, the name in there in the picture that he's doing. And that's Mark Ottman. And you could see his instructional where he uses this method, where he offsets the top text outward and the boundary inward on that welded text layer. So we want to go inward, 0.058. We want to delete the original, select the new. We want to create sharp corners on this, and we're going to click offset. Okay, cool. We'll click close, and that is done now. So now we can come into our bottom text layer here, which is missing. Did I not put my bottom text on there? Let me come back to my original. That's why we have our originals. On the original, let's copy to bottom text layer. There we go. All right, so in our bottom text layer here, there's no cleanup or anything that I have to do with this text. It's nice and clean. So we can go ahead and copy that to the welded text layer. Oh, you know what I'll do here? What I'll do here is I kind of, my original is my original. So I'll do the grouping and stuff here on this bottom text layer. So let's go ahead and convert this to a curve. Group it together so all those vectors are one item. And then we'll copy that to the welded text layer. That way it's ready to go. All right, so my original design has my fonts and my original design. My top text layer has the original font as well. I decided not to weld it or, weld in here. I decided to just send that to the bottom layer, the welded layer, and do it there. And my bottom text. Okay, so we can now turn on our welded text layer. We can select our grouped objects, and we can weld them together. All right. And don't do what I just did. Okay. Make sure that when you're not in a layer, that layer is turned off, and the layer you're in, make sure that it's active, or else it's going to be a bad day, just like what happened with me there. Okay. So make sure we're in our welded text layer. Okay. All right. So one more time. In that layer, let's weld that together. Very good. Looks all crazy and stuff for those of you that are just now joining us for text on text, but it will carve out nicely. And now we can come in and open up our top text layer just to have that. Wonderful. Okay. And so what you'll see is that top text layer, there's that offset around it. And then we have our inset boundary and everything, our border and stuff. So pretty cool stuff. All right. So over here, now with this one, the tool pathing's a little bit different. With this one, I'm going to start at 0 for the top text. I'm in my top text layer. Make sure that's active. And I'm going to be cutting down to 0.1, right? That's what I base my offset on. I'm going to be using my 60-degree V-bit and my 1/8 inch end mill, and it's going to be on my top text here. And of course, that's why we want to weld and keep this, because we got to use this layer. So on your top text layer, make sure that you do weld that text, and instead of hitting keep, just hit replace. Okay, just hit replace, and then copy that to the welded text layer. Don't keep your original text in here, because your original text is up here in the original layer, right? We want this welded because we got to use this in this tool path. Okay, so that was my screw up. Don't do what I just did. All right, so we'll select our welded text here. I don't want to say welded, the word welded. We'll select our text, our top text, and our border, cutting to 0.1, 60-degree V-bit, 1/8 inch end mill. I'm rastering. We're going to calculate that. Let's call this our top text. And click calculate. Okay. Now let's go back in here and let's add in that 1/4 inch end mill, because there is a lot of space in here and stuff. Let's go ahead and add in the 1/4 inch end mill to kind of like we did in the last one. So we'll put that 1/4 inch end mill in there and see how it puts it first in the list. Let's recalculate that. All right, so raster cut, and once again we'll just recalculate that. And so we'll preview that visible toolpath really quick. So the 1/4 inch end mill will go in there and do the majority of the work, followed by the 1/8 inch end mill, which will come and get a little tighter, and then the V-bit will come and do the cleanup. Okay, so there we go. And we'll go ahead and turn that layer off and come back into our welded text layer. And for our welded text layer, we want to select our inner boundary and our welded text here. And this one's going to be a VCarve toolpath, and this is where it changes. We don't start from 0 on this method. We don't start from 0. Since we are offsetting that top text and the boundary and all, we actually start from the first cut depth. So we've already cut down to 0.1. So we start at that 0.1. And then we cut down to another 0.1 for a total of our 0.2 cut depth for that overall, both stacks. But we actually start, instead of starting at 0 for the second toolpath, like we did in option number 1, we actually start where the first toolpath left off. Okay, but everything else stays the same. And we'll just go down here and we'll call this our bottom text. And we'll calculate that. Okay, and we'll preview that visible toolpath. So our 1/4 inch end mill will go in there and clean things up. And that would be our text on text. Now let's clean up our toolpaths and let's save them. And I'll show you how to save them. I forgot to save the last ones for you, but we'll do this one. So first thing I want to do is I want to kind of rename these, right? Rename this. And this will be the 0.25 end mill. I know what it is. This one will be the 0.125 end mill. And this one will be the V-bit. So the 60 DEG V-bit. All right, my bottom stuff, we'll rename that as well. So starting off with that 1/4 inch end mill. followed by the 1/8 inch end mill. And finish up with the 60-degree V-bit. All right, now when it comes to saving the tool paths, okay, and I'm going to double click on this to put my tool paths out here so y'all can see them. We can save all the 1/4 inch end mills together. We can save all the 1/8 inch end mills together as one file. And we can save all the 60-degree V-bits together as one file. The thing that is most important is that our top text is on the bottom. So I would not, if I were saving the 2 1/4 inch end mills, I would not want the word bottom text, or I would not want my bottom text toolpath on top of my top text, because it will carve backwards, meaning that it'll go to its deepest depth and try to carve shallower, right? So make sure when you're moving these toolpaths around that your top layer is on the top of the list, right? So I want my top text 1/4 inch end mill above my bottom text 1/4 inch end mill. My top text 1/8 inch end mill above my bottom text 1/8 inch end mill. And then my top text 60-degree V-bit above my bottom text 60-degree V-bit. So we'll go ahead and save these 2 items here, as we'll output them as one file. We're going to use, I'll use my helical arcs post processor here, and we're going to save that. And in our folder here, we're going to call this, I'm going to create a new folder inside my 3 times TOT, and I'm going to call this option 2 class. And in there, I'll go ahead and if you need to number this, just throw an 01 in front of this, because this is the first toolpath that you would run. Check off our 1/4 inch end mills and save that toolpath. And you can throw in an 02 in front of that if you want, so you know it's the second one that you're running. And then we're going to check that off, and then check off our V-bit toolpaths. Make sure they're both listed here. And this will be 03. Okay. And so 1, 2, 3 in that order. And because they use the same bit, we can save them together as one file. All right. So this is option 2. Okay. Oh, Harry and Robert. All righty. So up to this point, any questions before we move on to option number 3 using the Aspire? And so what we're going to do is, before we do that, I showed you how to save these toolpaths, right? Let's go ahead and don't forget to save the design. I always save your design first, Laney. Come on. This is going to be my option 2. 3 times TOT. All right. Awesome. Now I'm going to close this file here, file close, and I'm going to open up my option number 1 back up and come over to these toolpaths, because we didn't save these toolpaths here. On my lower third, I'm going to rename that. That lower third was my 1/8 of an inch end mill, 0.125 end mill. And the regular lower third was the 60-degree V-bit. All right, and let's save our changes. File save, because the file is already saved. I'm just updating those changes. Awesome. And let's go in and save these toolpaths. So I'm going to double click on the word toolpaths here to throw my list up here so y'all can see it. And for this one, all the 1/4 inch end mills can be in order, but remember, top text, bottom text, make sure top's on top of bottom. Our 1/8 inch end mill, we've got our bottom text here, and then our lower third. Okay. And then let's move this up in order. Where's my lower third 1/8 inch end mill? All right, so we got a top text 1/8 inch end mill, bottom text 1/8 inch end mill, and then the lower third 1/8 inch end mill, and that would be last in the list because that just gets done last. It doesn't matter, so it's last. And then of course, top text V bit, bottom text V bit, and lower third V bit, right? So starting off, we would select all of our 1/4 inch end mills. Okay, we'll save those. And so we'll go back to here to our main master folder, and I'm going to create a new folder and call this option 1. Pass. And in there, again, I'll just number it. I'll throw a number 01 in front. The reason why I use the 0 is so it throws it in order. 01, 02, 03, and so on. All right, my 1/8 inch end mill has 3 toolpaths that we're going to save together. Make sure they're all 3 listed here in the proper order. Save that. And we'll put a number 2 in front of that. And while I'm saving these last files, any questions you have, type them out now. And then we'll throw our 60-degree V-bit in here. And we'll throw 03. See. All right, so Chuck asked the question, what is the advantage of option 1 versus option 2? Well, one of the advantages that I can see is that in the main pocket area, and I'm here in option number 1, if you recall that if we look at our toolpath, we were starting at 0 and cutting to the 1/8 of an inch, right? We were pocketing out that whole top area there and everything. And because of the way we offset that back text, when we created that bottom text toolpath, you know, we also started from 0 and cut down to that final cut, that 1/8 of an inch plus 1/8 of an inch. So that means in some of these areas, when it's going to that, when it's going through that open air space, it's going to be carving air, right? It's going to be carving air and stuff. So the option 2, since we're cutting from 0 to, let's say, 0.1, and then in the bottom toolpath, we're starting at 0.1 and cutting another 0.1 for that total of that 0.2. We're not carving as much air. We're not running and wasting as much time. And we still get that nice transition. We get that nice transition at the, you know, from the top of our text, down to the bottom of our pocket cut. We get that nice transition V. Both ways. We get it both ways, but this way we're not carving air, you know, a lot of air, and we're saving some time. And speaking of time, I know Ronnie Probert likes to know times and things like that. If we were to look at option number 1's run time, and you know, we got some additional text in here, so it's a little unfair, but that's okay. We'll check off all the toolpaths, and based on my feeds and speeds, based on my machine and everything, this entire project, let's see here, 1:15, 1.3. This entire project will run about 3 hours and 11 minutes on this 26 by 9.5 inch stack text on text project, right? 3 hours and 11 minutes. Okay. Remember that number, 311. 3 hours, 11 minutes. All right. And I don't know, this must be a new customer that doesn't realize that I'm in a training session, but I'll forgive them. So sorry about all those beeps that you keep hearing in the background. There's just someone texting me some messages and stuff. Let's go ahead and close out of option 1. I'll save the changes to that. we'll go back to option number 2 so we can look at the time, the cut time. And so if I select all of my toolpaths, now I don't have that additional lower third toolpath, but we're still kind of milling the same area, blah, blah, blah. Except for, you know, it's a little bit, this will be a little bit faster because that lower third had smaller letters that it had to do, right? So not quite fair, but still going to be a dramatic difference. Option number 2, 2 hours and 3 minutes versus 3 hours and 11 minutes. So we've saved about an hour and 8 minutes of runtime. Okay. So that would be one of the advantages. I can see where doing the offset outward here, where it, even if we lose some of the font in that offset, like some of the inner parts of the fonts, that it won't be affected, that it won't affect the design. But on option number 1, where we offset the back text inward, if any part of that fonts, any one of those letters disappeared or, you know, went away, then it would absolutely affect the design. So we'd have to change the font. We wouldn't be able to use that. So that would be another advantage over option 2. That would be another advantage over option 2, is offsetting that top text outward and our border inward versus offsetting our back text inward, because we don't have a whole lot of options there, right? So I could see that as being an advantage as well in some cases. So that's it. Okay. And oh yeah, that makes sense, Bruce. Here, let's save those changes. Thanks, Bruce. Bruce said, hey, what was the runtime just on the lower third? That'll be the time difference. Let's go back in there real quick, and then we got to get on to option number 3 and wrap this up. So if we come back over here, the lower third, the runtime on that was 38 minutes. So if this whole project with that lower third was 3 hours and 11 minutes, right? And I took 38 minutes off of it. We'll just that would be an hour and 20 minutes. So and then my lower text was, what was it? 2 hours and 6 minutes or something like that. So there's about a time difference of about 20 to 30 minutes, if I did my math right, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, and Blue Knight, says, this is a different name as well, of course. Yep, that because there's more letters and different names and different curves and slowing down and ramping and turning this corner and that corner, that's going to affect the time. So we can't really compare apples to apples to oranges, in that case and stuff. All right, let's get on to option number 3. Option number 3 for a stack text on text design is an Aspire design, and it's basically modeling the stack text. So let's go ahead and go into our Aspire. Let's create a new file. We're going to go same size, 26 by 9.5 by 3/4. Working off the material surface. I'm going to start from the bottom left corner and click. I want a high model resolution. Now, I'm going to back this up. When I'm building a model, which is exactly what I'm doing here, I want the highest resolution that, So I'm going to hold my shift key when I click on create a new file. I'm holding my shift key down so that way I get those additional options in my resolution. Here I want an extremely high resolution, about 8 million pixels. That's my minimum. When I'm building a model, that's the minimum resolution. And let's get into a full view so you all can see this. When you hold your shift key down, when you click create a new project, it gives you 2 additional options. An extremely high, which uses 8 million pixels to generate that 3D model view, or the maximum, which uses 16 million pixels. Very rarely, unless I'm doing a very detailed model, very rarely do I work in the maximum. I usually work in the extremely high, but I want a nice clean model if I'm building it, because any pixelation in my model will translate to the quality of the cut, the actual carve. So I do not want to ever model or work with a model in a standard resolution or even a high. Very high is okay, right? You know, that's your option. You know, very high is okay, but I prefer when I'm modeling to work in an extremely high resolution. So we'll click OK on that. All right, so in this one, let's go ahead and create some text. Now I'm going to do the Spindle TV again, just so we can kind of see how this would work in this. So I'm going to go Spindle TV. I want this text to be 2 inches for right now. I'm going to hit F9 to get it on the center of the board. Step number 1. I'm going to create my pocket still just like that. So let's do that rectangle just like we did in the other 3. Let's offset that rectangle inward by however much you want your border. And so I'm going to go 1 inch. Delete the original sharp corners. Okay. All right. Now I can go ahead and get my Spindle TV sized up. So let's go ahead and give that a little bit of a stretch. And let's move that up here. I'm going to use my alignment tool to make sure it is centered left to right. There we go. All right. Now I'm going to work on my upper text, my top text, if you will. So, which is just going to be my name like before. I'm going to use my Rock River bold just like before. And let's go ahead and stretch it out. Stretch it out. All right, let's go ahead and use the alignment tool. Make sure it is centered left to right. It is. Wonderful. Let's go ahead and size this up. I like a little bit of height to that. And I'm going to bump it down just a little bit, right about there. I tell you what, let's go down a little bit more. There we go. Kind of break that in and that E apart a bit. All right, and then let's go ahead and create our lower third, your source. I don't know why I like hitting that. All right, let's get our font back in here, and let's go with a 0.75 inch tall font. All right, I'm going to use my alignment tool to make sure that's centered left to right. Okay. And yeah, you know, if I wanted to throw a model in there or something, I could, right? All right, option number 3 in our modeling tools is we're actually going to model this up. So let's go into a 2D split view here. So I'm going to select my bottom text first, and I'm going to go into the Create Shape tool. And on that Create Shape tool, I'm going to do a rounded, kind of a curved profile. I'm going to go with a 90-degree curve here. And I want to have a base height. Let's see how tall I want my letters. I'll give it a little bit of an extra base height of a 1/16 of an inch. No, let's go an 1/8 of an inch. Little base height, 1/8 of an inch. I want to limit the height of that 90-degree dome curve there. I want to limit that to a 1/16 of an inch, so it basically creates a rounded over edge, a nice rounded over edge. And I want to add this, so I'm going to go ahead and click. I'll call this my bottom text here, and click apply. Okay, so we can see that. All right, we're going to start a new component. And the reason why I went with the rounded edge is when I limit it to height, it basically creates a flat surface, but it's starting that 90-degree dome all the way around, but then it gets limited at a 1/16 of an inch height or an 1/8 of an inch, whatever, however big you want your round over. And that's what creates that rounded over edge there. So that nice rounded over edge. Okay. All right. So on this, my top text, I'm going to keep everything the same here in all. The only difference is I've got to build this text up higher than this. So on my text height, I'm going to double this to an 1/8 of an inch. And this is going to be merged with that bottom text, not added to it. It's going to be merged with it. And we'll call this the top text. And click apply. Okay. And at this point, I can look and see if I can add some more base height to this if I want to give myself a little bit more base height on my top text. And I also want to reduce my round over. It's a little too pillowy for me. So I'm going to go 0.1875 and click apply. Let me see here. Let me see if that's too much base height for what I want. Oh, hold on. I typed it in the wrong spot there, guys and girls. This is going to get limited. It was a 1/16. It's going to get limited to 0.02 on that. Let's click apply. Okay, so I want a slight round over there. And I need to build up my base height here. So we're going to go 0.1875. The base height was what I was trying to type in a moment ago, and I went the wrong direction. Okay, let's take this to a 32nd. It was a 16th. Let's go to a 32nd. 03125. 03125. It's a little flat. I want a little bit of roundedness here. There we go. Yeah, much better. Now I can look at my text and I can see here that I want my text to stand up a little bit more proud. So on this here, I'm going to go 1/4 of an inch instead of, so I'm going to add another 1/8 of an inch to that base height. So we're going to build that up and click apply. All right, good. Let me zoom out and look at this kind of at a whole. Yeah. All right, I'm happy with that. All right, so we're going to create a new component. On the tagline here, I'm going to go ahead and for the tagline, I'm going to go with a rounded. I'm going to go with an 1/8 of an inch height. I'm going to limit this to a 32nd, and it's going to be an add, not a merge, because it's its own component. And this is going to be my lower third. And click apply. Cool beans. All right. So that's going to be my model and my sign. I'm going to close this. And now I still want it to look like that V-bit. Right now it's more looking like a pocket kind of thing because of those straight walls. And I definitely do not want to carve this with straight walls. I want what's called a draft. I want a nice bit of angle coming out from those letters and everything. So on my 3 options here, my 3 bits of text, I want to add a draft to this, an angled draft. And I'm going to go, I don't know, let's go 22 degrees and click apply and see what that looks like first. Let that build that up. And while that builds that up, let's see here. Yeah, Jerry, the font that bulge, I just the maker of that font, I just bought their entire package of fonts, and they had some beautiful ones in there, some old style fonts and everything. They had a sale on Facebook, so I bought it. This font company had an ad. I clicked on the ad and bought it. All right, so what that draft did is that draft added some angle here to the edges to kind of give them that nice angled, look and flow. And so I could, if I wanted to, all right, that's a 22-degree draft. Let's just real quick, let's look at a 30-degree. 30 degrees is going to be too much. I don't like I personally, I kind of 30 is about the maximum draft that I would go. But I usually like 10, 15, or 22. A lot of times 15 or 22 degrees. That's kind of my mid-range. 30 is my maximum range that I would go on the draft angle. But let's see what a 30 looks like. I think I'm going to be happier with the 22. And then we'll go over and create our tool pass. Okay, so if we look at that, let's go straight on. Let's maximize this view up now. So that 30-degree angle, it just blends everything in here a little bit too much. I like a little bit of space. So I am going to go back to the 22-degree draft, and then we are ready to go. Okay, so let's click apply one more time. Let's get that cleaned back up, and we'll be ready to create our tool pass. Even the way this looks with all this airy space right there, even a nice 15-degree draft just to give some angle. I do not want these walls being straight down. I'm using a tapered ball nose bit. I want the nice clean where that bit is just where when it is traveling, it can travel, in a nice ramp, when it's coming and cutting and stuff. And instead of having to go down that wall and all, I like a little bit of a draft angle in that model. Hi, how you doing? We got to go back to me now. All right, let's close that. Okay, so this will be the text-on-text design here. All right, so now what I need to do is I'm going to go into my material setup here, and I'm going to look at exactly how tall my model is. Okay, my model height is 0.2813. That's my magic number. That's how tall from the top of my text to the very bottom of that text there. that light tan area, it's 0.2813. Okay. So I'm going to write that down. 0.2813. All right. Okie dokie. And I want the top of my text. I want the top of my text flush with the top of my material, right? So I need to bring that model down, put a gap above it, 0.2813. Okay. Because I want the top of my model. I'm an idiot. No, I don't. Don't do that. You want it back at 0. Put that thing back at 0, man. What are you doing? I want the top of my text flush with the top of my board. Okie dokie. All right, let's click OK. Gosh almighty. All right. And I'll tell you what I was trying to think of and what I was thinking, what I thought the hell I was doing. All right, so now on my model here, with that draft, it looks a little spiky here and all that stuff, but with that draft, there is a new boundary line that needs to be created because of that draft, right? So I'm going to come into my modeling tools here, and I'm going to create that boundary line over my selected models. Now, this, if I turn all this off, I don't need this visible anymore, these three, because when I put that draft in there, it recreated the model with the draft, right? So all three of these are basically kind of like our original. They can be turned off. So that model with that draft, I want to create a boundary, a vector boundary around it. Okay. And that's going to create that outer vector boundary around those letters and all. Cool. All right, let's create our toolpath. This is going to be a 3D rough cut. Make sure my model position is still at the top. Very good. Okay. It's going to be a 3D rough cut and a 3D finish, but I want to let my pocket, my 2D toolpath, do a lot of the work. Okay. Instead of my 3D toolpath, even though it's a 1/4 inch end mill, instead of letting it, kind of take its time doing this, I want to do a pocket toolpath. And that pocket toolpath is going to be between this boundary and that outer boundary that I just created. Okay. And on that pocket toolpath, the cut depth is going to be, you guessed it, that 0.2813, how tall my model is. That's going to be my finished cut. So that's my magic cut depth number. I'm going to use a combination of a 1/4 inch end mill and an 1/8 inch end mill. Kind of double up on it a little bit. So we'll go with the 1/4 inch end mill and the 1/8 inch end mill. I'm going to raster. I want to cut with the grain. With the grain. And I'm going to, this is my clearing pocket. Okay, and I'm going to calculate that. Okay, so for time's sake purposes and everything on my toolpath preview simulation quality, I'm going to turn that down and preview that visible toolpath so we can see that. Yeah, I sometimes I watch those ads on Facebook, Jerry, and look for those things when I got some amazing Photoshop and Adobe Photoshop and Illustrator, or mostly Photoshop. Some great transitions and elements and things like that. Super cheap, a lot cheaper than I could buy them if I would have bought them, straight out. This guy created them, and he was selling his whole collection. It was a beautiful collection. And yeah, I always keep an eye out on those Facebook ads. Okay. All right. So now that my clearing toolpath is done, now my 3D finishing toolpath, or 3D rough toolpath, can focus on the model as the boundary. So it could just focus on working on the model area, you know, this here and here. It doesn't need to worry about any of this other stuff, any wasting time, any of this other outer stuff here, because it's already been cleared away by that pocket cut. So on my modeled boundary, the one thing on the rough cut, I want to use I'm going to use a 1/4 inch end mill. I'll stick with the 1/4 inch end mill. This one does not have, you know, options for multiple tools. That's fine. I'm going to let that end mill go past my lines by half the bit, the radius of the bit. I want it to leave a 40,000ths of an inch machining allowance for the finished bit to clean up. And I want to do a Z level raster. And this is going to be my 3D rough. And calculate that. So that 0.125 offset allows that bit to, when it's carving, you know, using the model as the boundary, it allows it to go past that model just enough to kind of blend things in. So if we preview the rough cut visible toolpath, that's going to come back and very little bit, not a whole lot at all. So it's all finished cut from here. My finished cut toolpath is going to be using my, I think I could do pretty decent, if I want really good detail, there's a 16th inch tapered ball nose, but I should be able to get pretty decent detail with my 1/8 inch tapered ball nose. So we'll do that one first. We'll take a look at it. And again, I'm going to use the model as a boundary. And this time I'm going to let it go past that tapered ball nose. I'm going to let it go past that model so it gets down on these edges and everything, the edges of the letters. I want it to go past the model so it gets down them edges all the way to the bottom of that cut. So I'm going to let it go past by the diameter of the bit, 1/8 of an inch. And again, I'm going to raster with the grain. And this will be my 3D finish cut. We'll calculate that. That's going to take a second to calculate. So while it does, it's going to take a second because I'm using a very high resolution. So it's going to take a moment. So right now, while this is calculating, because as soon as this is done, we're done. So we should be finishing up in about 8 or 9 minutes. So it'll be a 2-hour class tonight versus that big old 3 hours. So yes, this is the place to find short to the point Vectric videos for whoever asked at the beginning of the class. 2 hours short. But if you have any questions, now's the time. And Blue Knight did have a question, so we'll answer that one first. Can you change the resolution after you finish? No. Nope. Whatever your project setup is set up as, whatever resolution, when it builds, when it generates and builds that model, it's going to build it off of that resolution. So you can't change it. If you took a job, let's say I built a job with a very low resolution, built a model with a very low resolution, and, you know, save that model, even export it out as an STL. And I tried to, let's say I imported it into a project that I just set up with a high resolution. The models was created at that low resolution, and it's going to be imported at that low resolution. It doesn't matter that the project itself is at a high resolution that I'm importing it into. It was created in a low resolution. So if you ever purchase models off of eBay and Etsy, and some of them are kind of crappy and all, because they didn't have a good enough resolution, you know. But you can't take a low resolution model and make it a high resolution, but you can create from scratch a model in high resolution if you start off that way. Hopefully that answered your question, Blue Knight. All right, let's see here. So on this one, we're going to have 3 toolpaths. We're going to have a pocket cut that's going to do our clearing toolpath. We're going to have a 3D rough cut that's going to just do a little bit of rough work. Those 2 use a 1/4" end mill, so they're going to be saved as one file. So it'll, after the pocket's done, it'll come back and do that little 3D rough. And then we'll do our 3D finish. And if we look at our 3D finish, I'm going to zoom in nice and tight. That offset allowance, that 1/8 of an inch offset allowance, allows that bit to get past that model, right? Allows it to get past that model to do some cleanup and stuff. And so we will go ahead and preview that final toolpath. And I can tell right now, just by looking at the training CAD training, that I want to use my 1/16 inch tapered ball nose for this, not my 1/8 of an inch. Yeah, most definitely my 1/16 inch tapered ball nose. The radius is too big for the letters up here, so it doesn't look good at all. So, and everything. I mean, it looks decent enough, but I can see the tool marks. It's hard to see with this low resolution preview, but I can see those tool marks and everything in there. So for me, on this 3D finish cut, I would use my 1/16 inch tapered ball nose, the smaller diameter ball nose for that cleaner cut, and I would I could still let that bit go over an 1/8 of an inch, or I could just go the full diameter of the bit. I'll still be able to get past. So I'll go 0.07 on that that offset allowance, and I'll calculate that. But yeah, ladies and gentlemen, that is going to take a minute to calculate. We've got about 4 minutes to go. Let's follow Ronnie's advice there. And I think Crystal was throwing out some of that information earlier, and someone else, hit that thumbs up button. In the video on YouTube, if you have never joined us before and this is your first time joining us, and you like this video, definitely hit the thumbs up button, subscribe to the channel, hit that little notification bell so you get notified when these events and all happen like this, and all that good stuff. But this is 3 approaches to working with or creating a VCarve style text on text. Option number 1 creates 3 layers, your original top text and your bottom text layer, and then you offset the back text inward based on the V-bit, that offset on that V-bit. Do that little drawing, draw your V-bit out, move the line up, and measure that offset. Option number 2, and I should put in here in the options if I was doing this properly, if I was making these notes properly, I would say that in option number 1, both top and bottom toolpaths start depth is 0. Okay, so both the top and bottom toolpath start depth of 0 with option number 1. Option number 2, we create 4 layers: our original layer, our top text layer, bottom text layer, our welded text layer, so it kind of separates that welded text layer. And then again, based on that V-bit, this time the top text is offset outward, and the actual boundary, that inside boundary, is offset inward by the same amount, whatever that offset number is. And in the case of option number 2, the top text toolpath start depth is 0, and the bottom text toolpath start depth is starts at, let's see how I can word this, starts at where top text finished, right? Or, starts at, let's see, the bottom text toolpath starts where the top text toolpath finished. Let's do that, where the top text toolpath finished. And I could do right finished. And so that's the difference between those two options. And then, of course, option number 3 is actually modeling the stack text in the design. So quickly, let's reset this preview. Let's preview all these toolpaths. So we have our pocket cut that's going to do all the majority of the work. And this, by far, guys and girls, is going to be the longest running project of all 3 options. This one will, because it is a model, it will run the longest of all 3. I pretty much am sure of that. And we'll look at the runtime here. So, yeah, the 1/16 of an inch bit can get a little bit cleaner in there. That 1/16 of an inch tapered ball nose can get a little cleaner in there. All right, and then so we have that nice stacked text. And so when this text is stacked and created, there's a draft added. That draft angle is kind of whatever you want it to be. I'm kind of like, this was a 22-degree draft angle. That angle there. We don't want our text to be straight up and down. If we're going to be using tapered ball noses bits and things, and we want that bit to be able to travel like a ramp, so it doesn't really have to slow down that much. See, if it's a straight wall, that bit has to come in, stop, almost raise up to cut that edge and then over. In this case, it's just slowing down to climb up that ramp and then over. So it actually kind of speeds up the toolpath by doing it, adding that draft and all. Let's go ahead and look at our toolpaths here. And let's stay consistent to wrap up this on a good note. We're going to rename the clearing toolpath to add our 0.25 EM in there. We followed that clearing toolpath up with a 1/8 inch end mill to kind of get in there and get a little tighter. We've got our 3D roughing was a 1/4 inch end mill. And then our 3D finish was a 1/16 of an inch, 0.0625 ball nose. Okay. And so if we select all of these, and again, based on my machine, my feed rates and my run speeds and stuff, we are looking at a 10-hour and 11-minute job from start to finish on that. Okay. About an hour, 2 hours and 22 minutes just for the pocket cut alone. The 3D rough cut was about 16 minutes, but the 3D finish cut with that tapered ball nose is 7 hours and 30 minutes. So not an option for everyone, but it is an option, right? Again, that run time and all would change based on your bits, your feed speeds, your feed rates and all. It'd be based on your machine and its rapid rates and all in your scale factor. So it would be adjusted accordingly. All right. If I were to save these to close out with a finale here, we would save our 1/4 inch end mills. We'll go ahead and move that up in the list. Our 1/4 inch end mills, that 3D clearing or that pocket clearing and that 3D rough can be saved as one file. And let's hit cancel because we got to make sure we check off the box that says output is one file. We don't want that to be a laser. I want my helical arcs option. And this would be 01. And in my option class here, we will create a new folder and call this option 3. And We'll save that. Uncheck that. Followed by our 1/8 inch pocket clearing bit. Save that. This will be 02. And then finally our 3D finish toolpath. We'll save that. And that will be the third toolpath we'd run. All right, ladies and gentlemen, so that is a look at 3 ways that we can kind of approach our text on text. Mark Ottman was on to something. I kind of like his method. The first method, option 1, is the option that I teach, that I've taught, ever since, teaching text on text. But after catching Mark Ottman's, video, check out, it's, I think that's the name of his YouTube channel too, Mark Ottman, Ottman. Just type in text on text Vectric in, on YouTube. It's about a 9-minute video. He breaks it down in about 9 minutes, me taking 2 hours here. But he does it in about 9 minutes. And you'll know in the preview, it has like Sally Jones is the little preview picture of the thumbnail. Give him some love. He's a, I don't know him personally, but, I learned how to do the second method that way from him. So got to give him credit, right? And now I'm sharing that information with you. All right, everybody. I really appreciate you. Let's, before I say my goodbyes, let's make sure I didn't miss anything. I hit that button as soon as I bring up the channel. Thanks for the hard work. I like Aspire myself. Thanks, Laney. Great. Everybody's kind of saying their goodbyes. Chris Crosscrafts is always popping in late as usual, but I'm glad you made it, my man. Thank you, Crystal. Michael, I didn't say hi to you this evening. Hopefully you were watching me. Have a great night. Get some rest. And let's see here. David, Laney, to help set the Z when using different end mill bits, what is the speed of the alignment tool when it comes down when aligning the first bit? I always recommend, unless you have an automatic, where you click a button and it comes down and sets automatically, even on that automatic in your CNC settings, there are speed settings, how slow it comes down to touch off. I always come down about 10 inches a minute to do my touch off. If I'm doing it as a single touch off, the quick set block for the Digital Woodcarver 2440, it's set to come down at 3.54 inches per minute, nice and slow for an accurate touch off. If that's what you're, let's see here, to help with setting the Z axis using different end mill bits, what is the when aligning? You mean this? I'm hoping, but 3. Okay. Are y'all? Something's happening. You see it blanking out? Let's see here. I missed you. All right, great. Okay, I think I'm still broadcasting, but I don't know. It looks like I'm lost because I can't get David. I'm back. All right, guys. Something's going weird, and we got blacked out for a minute there. The sound went weird. Everything went weird. Everything went crazy. All right, guys and girls. Hopefully my sound's not weird as I close out and say goodbye. Until next time, y'all have a great day.